Weldon.
Okay.
You ready?
Good evening. My name is Weldon Clears, and this is the second portion of The New Immigrants. Tonight we'll be interviewing Judy Nylon, along with myself is Janice Caffaso.
Hello.
And Janice started. You know Judy better than I.
Okay. Judy, you've just recently come to New York via the London route. What were you there for?
Well, I was there for 7 years, mostly because when I was living in New York before, it was impossible to do what I wanted to in music and art and so forth. And it's only possible if you go to Europe and become successful there and come back.
Why do you say it's only possible to make it in Europe first, then come to New York? I mean, was your talent so unrefined that it wasn't acceptable here? It wasn't commercial enough that you had to be successful there?
Well, let's just say that I've never owned brown shoes or had much to do with plaid.
Well, Frank Zappa said that, but...
Yeah, well, he had a mustache.
Well, that's we know tattoo artists that can easily help you out.
No. Just, I mean, probably everyone watching knows that it's a lot easier to do things without the kind of pressure that America kind of mass consumption puts on you in Europe. They have a certain kind of respect for individuality.
How did you find it
has to do
easier
with
there
renegade here.
then?
How?
Yeah.
Well, I got things done.
Like?
Like the best people that I ran into that were not in kind of pillow talk cinema, were filmmakers, were all in Europe. We're mostly in Germany right now. Or the best people that most music even that's popular in America. The best acts seem to be all from England. So I wanted to do music, so I went to England.
So that's what I was going to say. When you left the U.S. 7 years ago to go to Europe, what was your main ambition? Was it music? Was it art? Was it fashion? Was it theater? Movies? What?
Well, it's always art, but there's a certain sort of it's easier to be an artist than a craftsman in Europe. It's easier to be a craftsman than an artist in America because America doesn't support artists.
How about New York? What like you went to England, you went to London.
Yes.
Why didn't you try to do it in New York, since it seems it's very acceptable on whatever form?
Well, where did you originally come from? I mean, this might be below the belt, folks, but we should get down to the basic grassroots.
Well, I was like kind of around kind of Boston and then Florida and then in and out of New York, and I lived in LA. I'm like fairly mobile.
All American, it sounds like.
Where did you go to high school?
1 year in Massachusetts and a couple in Florida.
Did you go for art or in that direction?
Are you kidding? Anyone who's ever been to Florida knows you do not go there for art.
Weldon, really.
There's galleries, there's people there, so they must want to be
There's
entertained.
also a heavy line of Ku Klux Klanners there.
No,
Did you go after her?
I went there because I could have my hair back combed and a
How long have you had your hair back combed? From years ago?
On and off.
Well, I only usually back comb it when it's dark.
You forward comb it in daylight so no one can recognize you?
No, when it's blonde, you leave it alone. It's already been brutalized.
So you didn't think, after being in Florida, you didn't think of going to New York and trying to make it here? You thought
No,
of going
I
to
went
London?
directly from Florida to Paris. And then I came back.
Okay, stop. Why did you go to Paris the first time? What was your career aspiration? What did you want
Well, it was more
to do?
sort of an anticipation of a lifestyle. It was bound to be better than Florida.
In other words, you wanted to be supported by someone with lots of money and doing the least you could?
No,
or
no.
Okay.
I just wanted to...
That's how I think of leaving
No,
Florida.
I just wanted it to look sort of like more, more sort of like ballet studios than bozos and hot rods and
Well, were you into
jungle.
fine arts? I mean, were you into ballet? Were you into?
Well, I was looking to be.
You were what?
Well, when did you stop looking? When did you put
That's when I
on
ran
tap
into-
shoes?
That's when I ran into rock and roll.
Did it hit you like a brick wall?
How long were you in Paris?
You mean the first time? I've been off and on there for a long time.
Well,
I just don't particularly like, I would never consider living there. It's just like it's like
Her
almost
French is poor.
non-existent. But no, but I mean, if you live in London, it's like kind of going to New Hampshire or Vermont. It's kind of like laid back and easy, you know, and you eat a lot.
And if you think you're starving there, believe me, you're affluent.
You're laid back.
Comparison.
Is that you're
Paris.
saying that's more a recent feeling,
Yeah.
recent thought? Then how come they're going nuts with like punk rock if they're so laid back? They're going in that direction.
Can you
No, one of
explain
the
that?
things,
Do you know
yeah,
anything?
yeah. First of all, when I got back to America after 7 years, I was really shocked. Sort of like all the kind of rampant people that had arrived from nowhere that were all like sort of the Saturday Night Live parodies of Czechoslovakian playboys, or the people that were kind of plaid and long-haired, kind of people that you knew came off a football team somewhere in the universe, you know?
Were
all of that.
aspiring to be more than they were, you feel?
Yes, well,
Or
without...
they didn't deserve the attention they were getting.
No, I'm just saying that somehow they had kind of replaced the kind of what was culturally American. It was like, it seems I hear that it goes in waves. It's either kind of...
Well, now it's a new wave.
Yeah. It's always a new wave.
How much do you think going to England and Paris has helped you to deal with New York and, you know, a style success? Like trying to make it. Do you think you learned a lot more from that than spending your time just in like New York?
Or just Paris?
Well, I've
or
always,
just
I mean,
LA?
if I had
Oh,
stayed
wow.
here, I would have always been ill at ease, as I never really particularly fit in here. I mean, in the 60s, I looked sort of like, you know, I mean, I never quite caught the Ivy League image. And at the same time, I never really looked like Teresa Manicotti. So by going to Europe, it sort of slid in. It sort of changed my respect for a different type of beauty.
Well, you didn't get pearls when you were 16 then, in other words, on your birthday.
Well, no, my high school picture is me sans pearls with a Cleopatra
Is your name
haircut.
Teresa Manicotti, your real name?
Where'd you get him?
No, you just use it. I don't know.
He's an adaptable sidekick, you know.
Is that your real name, Judy Nylon?
Well, it's very close. Well, in fact, it was a nickname from Nyland.
Well, does
I did
nylon
not
mean
pick
you're
this. I
smooth
did-
like silk? Just
No, I
slide
didn't-
on and easy?
No, come on. I didn't pick this. This is just the name that came up as a nickname. If your last name is Nyland and you were a kind of post-war baby, you would undoubtedly have been called Nylon as well.
I think it's interesting. I mean, it's...
So what are you doing now in New York? You said you're in like 5 groups or 4 groups?
3.
3
well,
groups.
that's covering a lot of grounds.
I joined John Cale's group for recording and for touring whenever he does.
What did you
I
do
work
with
with-
John Cale, though?
Sing and play bass badly.
Did
couple
he
of
notice how
covers.
badly you played bass, or he liked the image that you projected?
Well, he felt it balanced his overplaying and playing everything too well.
Well, that's good for John Cale, that he had that insight at least.
And I just did it for a touring band. And also because, well, it was really funny. We're sort of like each other's alter ego in a funny sense. So on a European tour, we ended up as being some kind of... Well, someone came up to me and said that we looked like the Sonny and Cher of Belladonna. Which I thought was like really nice. It kind of, well, it was a good tour. And then,
Did you make any money?
absolutely.
What's that? Absolutely you did, huh?
Sure.
You're concerned about the money aspect of it or expressing yourself?
Only as much as is necessary for me to continue expressing
To
myself.
support yourself doing what you want to do.
I think in a certain sense that preoccupation with money that has to do with America, people suffer more from that than they do from suffering from too little in Europe. I mean, while I was there, I learned to use equipment in its most fundamental sense, like rolling tape off a milk bottle onto a 4-track because there was not a second machine to do such with, you know, and it became very kind of easy. You know, and I understand in principle how things work in their simplest form, whereas I got back here and there's a lot of people that are totally alien to the technology around
So
them.
in other words, you're saying that basically Americans are lazier because it's there for them much easier than it is in Europe because the money isn't available and the technical know-how is less abundant.
No, I'm saying that
Or
it's so
what?
split that either the people that understand the technology around them have lost their kind of guts, their savagery so much they have no idea what to do with it.
Well, who
Or
do
the
you
people who
respect
know
now?
what to do with it have no idea how it works, so why?
What are your favorite artists that along those lines?
The lines you're interested in, like
Yeah.
who do you respect, who do you feel is doing something worthwhile of your time and other people's?
Oh, I don't know. Listen, do I have to think of that immediately?
No, well, we
We'll
can
come
go on
back
to
to
the
it.
next
All right.
question. When you decide, we don't want
Have
to
you done any fashion anything in fashion?
No.
Just music?
No, I mean just kind of music, art. No, I mean, you know.
Well,
know,
you
I've been-
modeled for a while, didn't you? I mean, I saw
Well,
your
not
face.
yeah, but not that
occasionally
wasn't
in-
exactly kind of fashion. That was a
Europe's.
different kind of. There's an appreciation for phenomena in Europe, and I was a
agree.
model more along the line of phenomena than of fashion.
That you were an American beauty to hit the European scene, and that you were interesting and angular, and they wanted to tune into that, whereas that would have made not 32 cents in New York.
Well, absolutely. That's generally, I mean, people, the idea of beauty in America somehow has been like distilled down to Farrah Fawcett, from where it's still sort of like Jean Moreau and kind
Right.
of a more,
well, that's timeless
three-dimensional
beauty,
kind of,
which America doesn't realize yet.
well, I don't know.
I mean, I don't believe that Farrah Fawcett is going to be gorgeous in 5 years from now, whereas Jean Moreau hasn't changed in like the last 10 years that we could see. But
What instruments can you play?
Well, my singing's not too bad, but I play synthesizer badly. I play bass kind of like badly. I can play almost any instrument.
is that like an
Badly?
accompaniment to your singing, in other words?
Well, no, I only use them to write.
Uh-huh.
I'm like better on studio things. I'm better at using sort of recording techniques than actually playing the instruments. But on the other hand, I don't really see my future as being a musician, like a guitar player, any more than it's like being a craftsman again.
How do you see your future? You know, if you had to fantasize, what would you consider, you know, like your fancy you'd like to see yourself in, say, 10 years?
She'd stop giving
Nah.
herself her own
No.
haircuts.
5 years, 2
No,
years,
I'm not going to give
1
anyone
year.
any warning.
No?
For sure. I mean, if Judy changes every day, we couldn't even begin to predict 10 years from now.
Do you practice these instruments every day? You know, what do you do your daily routine? You just hang out or what?
No, I mean, how dare you?
That's almost probing.
Okay, I don't want to do that then.
We want to know, though, so let's get an answer.
You don't have...
I don't work in the dime store. I mean, I found out what my Social Security number is recently, and I am prepared to pay American
They gave you
taxes
one,
since
huh?
I'm back here. Yes, they gave me one. But I mean, I'm consulting lawyers to find out what my status is.
You don't pay income tax? You don't have a regular job?
No, I do them, and I do
Well,
pay
did you find
taxes
that
in different
amazing?
countries, but I don't know what I'm doing here.
You
I
pay
haven't been here
taxes
that
in what
long.
other countries?
In England, because I make money there.
As I don't understand.
On records. On returns from records.
Okay,
You
well,
have albums
explain
out
to
in
Weldon what
Thank you.
records
I'll kill
were
him.
made. He doesn't understand, like, how you could be in New York and not have any means of support and be here and
How long
paying
you been here?
taxes in London. you
6
know?
years.
You know, he doesn't understand how he can be in New York without any visible means of support.
No, I understand that you need a visual.
But he can't
visible-
imagine why you should have to pay taxes in London for
No,
something that you're
no,
not
that's
doing now.
not. I'm
Well, then
wondering
what?
what you do as like a steady income
Hey,
besides just
that's probing again.
not as a steady income per se, then just as enjoyable money.
Everyone's got friends, well.
Next.
Okay, what are you involved in now? You've debuted in New York. I saw you play at Max's Kansas City, and you had sort of a up to the minute, let's get together band behind you. We're not commenting on how good or bad they were. We're saying that you were very good. Okay. So what since then? That was, 6 weeks ago.
I've written a lot of other material, recorded the entire thing, all the material for one more album. Some of it is audio montage, which means that it's things that are
Can you
not
explain
necessarily performable. There are things where there's a record out on Polydor that's called RAF that are the tapes just after the Schleier kidnapping by the RAF in Cologne, where the German police put together tapes where you dialed 1166 on the telephone, and they were soliciting information, trying to find out who the people in the Red Brigade, the Baader Meinhof, and miscellaneous other ones, also who they were. Now, they had edited those by snipping out what they assumed would be key phrases in the ransom demands. And by backing them
As
with
for
music...
information to find out?
No, they were judging that someone would recognize the voice, so forth, recognize the phrasing, because the people who were speaking on them were multilingual.
Okay.
And generally, if you have someone who's multilingual, there are always residual traces of their origin in their...
Right.
All right.
Okay.
And
Moving right along.
then by putting sort of like that kind of German metal disco music, there was like...
Like what? Kraftwerk?
Well,
Something
it's
like
Eno.
that?
It's like
Eno,
because it was
okay.
like it was done with Brian, so it's that same kind of music that you find sort of Bowie, Eno, Kraftwerk, where it's intimate but at the same time mechanical.
Right.
That behind it, and adding certain kind of things that were voiceover. We tried to put the information back into the original tapes that the police had edited out, so that you would in fact know who these people were, if not by name, if by inclination. And since I've been over here, I've been interested in Citizens Wave, citizen band radio things,
CB.
because they're also completely uncensored. And I think you can montage things like that that have to do with what really happens around you,
Well, do you feel
as
there's
opposed
a lot...
to like Hotel California, which means like jack
Okay,
shit
we
nothing.
just hear the
If
same
you-
shit over and over. But do you feel that a lot more is being covered on CB radios than most people are aware of? I mean, do you think that there is an infiltrated kind of propaganda happening for whatever cause there might...
No, I haven't had a chance to really look into it as well as I might, but it seems that like cable television, that it's something that exists, but is not used at all. It's used simply in its like most primitive, most kind of like bleh way.
If you had to pick a handle to, what would be your handle, your name?
I would refuse to. I would use my name. That's handle enough.
I mean, do you mean Weldon handle as like a label?
No, a
I mean,
name.
that's
And
kinda dated,
on
don't you
CB,
feel?
when you're dealing with CB radios,
Oh, like that.
you have a name, and your name is a handle. They call people a lot of different names. Smokey the
people
Bear
should
is
be encouraged to
police.
use their actual name.
Whereas
Therefore, they
because no
exist outside of the airwaves if they use like a name that they are recognizable on the streets by.
Well, that's a...
But I think that's
song
the
that
reason they don't.
Deluxe did.
Because, say if you said something, some idiot on, the airwaves, on the CB, say, you sound like an asshole. And they say, oh, what's your name? And you say, if you have a handle, it's like incognito. If you say Judy Nylon.
But this came up in sort of like in London, the whole kind of like punk thing where everyone knew people by their name, but it was a name that was only vaguely relating to the name that they were like, what do you call, like Christian, Christian, like the given
By,
name, you
right.
know? It had nothing to do
Well,
with
do you
that.
think that the
But it was
name
still
made
their
the
name.
talent then? I mean, because everyone was like, the talent that was evident in England, like say a year ago, as punk was at its prime, you know, if you didn't have any sort of thing going for you, had a name like Rat Scabies, or you were like, you know, Pimple a Go-Go, or whatever the name might have been, you know, that made people...
Pimple a Go-Go?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's just like an...
Go, Janice. Well, I know what you're saying.
It was
sort
like,
of,
you know, that
But-
if the band didn't have anything for them, you had to give them credit for the originality and the thought process that went into naming themselves.
No, but that actually, in the same way that when I pulled into here, I'm about to, in fact, I'll ask, you know, how I can get these files. When I pulled in, I tried to get my trunks that had been shipped by sea. I was told that, I mean, they put me through, like, ridiculous. I was, like, finally asked why, and they said that I was on a suspects list.
For what?
Exactly. You know?
Ah.
Who said this?
The people at Customs and Excise. So, that whole thing relates back to the thing about names in England, because people were doing things that were not illegal, but not above a fascistic government type of watching. And it made it more difficult for them to monitor if they didn't actually know people's, like, family names. And, I mean, try and find, you know, like, rat scabies. Try and monitor
exactly.
someone
Yeah.
like that.
Well, do you think that
Although
they would
you'd
get...
see nothing, but, you know.
That's irrelevant, in fact. But do you think that they were getting away with a lot more in London that would have been possible to get away with in New York had the situation...
As far as what, the music, you mean?
Yeah, the music and the relevance of what they were saying. They were being
Well, no, I'll tell
anarchists,
you why.
supposedly.
It's because in New York, everything that is like that is always confined to the artist ghetto, also known as Soho or anything south of Union Square, and bounded by water.
So it's less
So they managed to
legitimate to you?
contain it. Well, they managed to make sure that no one on the Upper East Side ever has to deal with it. And where in England, the fact that I ended up sort of like, you know, cha-charing with Anthony Barber and forcing them to realize, you know, like, I'm here, I'm not
Can you
going
tell some
anywhere,
of
and
these
I'm going to
folks
do
who
it.
Anthony Barber is?
When I first arrived in England, he was Chancellor of the Executive, which is like Secretary of the Treasury. Exchequer. Yo, Ruth.
Right on.
But it's like, you know, it's like a government position, but it's so small that the people, you know, one of the reasons why people are not so sort of impressed by other English people who are like hot shit by the time they get to America is because they're like, you know, your local yo-yos in the dry cleaner. And
Where would you where would you say, like, the capital of music is? In New York now? Because, you know,
economically, it's probably in L.A., but that is like that's sinking fast.
and
Yeah, but-
okay,
And artistically, it is
but-
probably in London, and the mixing of the two is probably New York.
So in other words, you've got to be a world traveler. You've got to hit L.A., you've got to hit New York, you've got to hit London to like get something together that's really what you feel assured of, do you think? I mean, that you shouldn't just be in one place or the other.
Oh,
Because you
absolutely.
moved from London to New York, and somehow it sounds like you're disheartened with New York. You're not like, rah, rah, New York, I'm glad I'm here. It's like, it seems to me
Well,
like
the whole music business
it's
has become very,
necessity.
very kind of like insular anyway. Like, I don't believe that any of the people that went to the Stones concerts actually bought tickets at their corner little record shop. They were all internal music business people.
But
So
see,
therefore,
I
like
can't
when you
agree.
arrive from London or anything like that, your whatever your like link was with whatever record company, particularly in America where like the government does nothing to support artists whatsoever, they make it as difficult as possible.
takes a long
what about all
know.
those grants and funds?
But grants, well,
Get
then
outta
you know,
here, grants.
how do you think we're doing our show? Is it by a government grant? It's by hard work. It's by us taking the time and the effort to get it together.
You're waiting for grants, you're waiting for the man in the
Right.
moon.
I mean, for us to get a grant for this show, maybe in 2 years we'd have it on the air. I
And
mean,
by
you know,
that time,
grants are
you'd
there
look
for
like
the
every
asking
other
if you're
hippie
not-
bozo,
Right.
the penniless, like, grub. Well, I don't want to talk about it.
She doesn't want to be jaded, is what she's trying to say, maybe?
No, you can keep, if you keep changing long enough, you don't really have to kiss boot as much.
Right. I mean, you have to have that bit of chameleon-like quality to you. The resilience, baby. I mean, last week her hair was blonde. No.
And yours was dark.
For sure. I mean, you know.
What color's your hair been, besides blonde and black?
Well, when you work with Vidal so soon, it doesn't matter.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's covered, you know. I mean, I've covered probably. The eyes are always the same, you know.
That's what
But,
sells her.
You know, it's every possibility.
Would you suggest somebody who had a basic kind of attitude like you do to follow that kind of route, or just hang
I
in
would
New York?
suggest that they always keep a few things in mind. Once they start dealing with the media, which is necessary, not to be sort of sucked in by their own publicity, which is like a real pitfall, and that's it for a number of people I can think of. Or to keep mobile, not to be worried about owning things, not to be worried about owning equipment, everything, to work on their having access to things. Because in fact, all you're ever going to own is what you're thinking. So all you should worry about is how to actually work with it and get it out.
Okay, so that's what you're saying that, or you're suggesting that people should do who have similar intentions to you. So now that you're in a position to move, what are you going to do? What are you going to do different than you've been doing for the last few years, you know? Because now you're in New York and
Well, I've been
it's gonna
building
be,
this for the last few years.
Mhm.
I mean,
It's
a few
an-
years ago I didn't know how to rewire a plug.
right.
And now
But
I
it
know how to
takes a
play a
long
few
time to
instruments and
get
work
your
a
foot on the
studio.
ground.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'll do a few records, and from there I'm always interested in film and art and a number of things. I'll float and turn up periodically.
Well,
In
Judy.
other words, we'll be seeing a lot of Judy,
Right.
which can be bad.
Well, that's about it for the time. Judy, thanks a lot for coming by and being
Good luck. I'm
interviewed.
sure she'll be a
Thanks for
hot
answering
shot.
all the questions.
Not all of them.
Yeah, I heard a lot of censorship going on there.
Okay.
Ta-da!
That's it.
Bravi, bravo.